Hi folks, this is a video for CCNY ear training, and this comes at right after our kind of midway point of the semester, a little after that, where so far we've mostly been dealing with the mechanics of ear training in the form of singing through different melodies and their rhythms that focus on, I don't want to say basic stuff, but the melodic material has been a lot of stepwise motion and outlining different triads through leaps. So that kind of grounds us in the different harmonies and that happen in a lot of pop music, different phrase structures, so on and so forth. And we've also been dealing with more complicated rhythms than you might have dealt with in previous semesters. A lot of syncopation, ties over bar lines, downbeats that have rests, 16th notes tied to 8th notes tied over bar lines, all this kind of stuff that you've done recently. And so it's from these kind of ideas that we'll jump off from these into even more complicated is a fair word, things going forward, both melodically and rhythmically and metrically. And so melodically, as we'll see throughout the rest of the semester, we're going to start finding our places, finding melodies that are outside of just the diatonic scale, both major and minor. So notes that are not sung as just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Pitches that have accidentals, more accidentals, and we'll have to have a way to sing those, and we'll talk about that. Also, and so that'll come in the form of just basic chromaticism as an effect, and also chromaticism through what we'll call modal borrowing. And if that sounds weird, that's okay. We'll deal with all of it. It's pretty cool. You might have dealt with it in harmony or are approaching it in harmony. So that's one thing, or a couple ways chromaticism happens in pop music melodies and harmonies. And for rhythm and meter, and that'll kind of be our focus for today and for this coming week, we'll start looking at unusual phrase structures. So most of our phrases have been 4 and 8 measure phrases, right? 4 measure phrases, 8 measure sections. We saw a little bit of, I introduced you to something a little unusual with the Sarah McLachlan tune, and that had both different phrase lengths, or had different phrase lengths, and that's partly because of this use of mixed meters, where we had a couple 2/4 measures inserted into what was normally 4/4 measures. And we'll see an example of that today, but we'll also dive into the world of odd meters, as they're usually called. Of course, they're just odd to us here in the US that listen to pop music. They're not so odd in a lot of other places, but when we say odd meters, we mostly mean things, meters that are not 3/4 or 4/4, so 7/4, 9/8, things like that. And that comes up less in, well, there's plenty of pop music that employs it. A lot of metal music does that. Radiohead is kind of an iconic pop, what we could call pop band that uses a lot of odd meters. So it's out there plenty, and we'll see today not an odd meter use. Sorry, we'll see today a song by Outkast that uses more the insertion of a mixed meter, a 2/4 measure, and then we'll look at an Alice in Chains example of odd meters. Okay, so let's take a look. I'll put this on the screen. The tune "Hey Ya," that I'm sure everybody knows, right? If you've ever been to a wedding or seen a car commercial recently, or I can't imagine anyone has not heard this song. What I can imagine, though, is that you may not realize, because the song is so infectious and it's so ubiquitous in our culture, is how unconventional it is in terms of music, right? And this is what ear training is all about: is recognizing how the how what's happening in this music can manifest in ways that kind of disguise it almost. Now you're just singing measures 19 through 30, and I bracketed those off for you, of course. And that isn't so unusual. This melody should not be super hard to handle. This really isn't an exercise in giving you something really difficult to sing, but what you are going to do is use a metronome to perform it, and you're going to really emphasize and watch out for that 2/4 measure. So if we look at this, what is the phrase length here? So this tune has the same phrase, I think 3-4 times in a row before the chorus, and from measure 19 through 24, you see this, right? And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 measures. So this melody has a 6-measure phrase, and one of those measures is a 2/4 measure, right? And that 2/4 measure really has an important effect on how we hear this music and the kind of the rhythmic drive that this tune has. So take note of that when you're singing this. And I want you to use a metronome that just ticks. You don't want to set it to 4/4 because then you just want it to tick on like this. What tempo can we go? Right? But you'll sing with numbers, of course, and we're in G major here. 6, 5, 4, 3. Sorry, I messed it up. 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 3, so on. And it doesn't have to be this fast, by the way. That's 150. It can be as slow as you want, as long as you can perform it correctly. And so there's that 6-measure phrase. But notice what they do here. So right in this double bar line with the repeats that starts in measure 25, that is the chorus that we all know so well, right? That's the tune, the name of the tune, Hey Ya. And there's not a lot going on rhythmically, but notice that the metrical component stays exactly the same. Where we have remember we had 3 measures of 4/4, a measure of 2/4, and 2 measures of 4/4. That's our verse structure. So here in the chorus, 3 measures of 4/4, 1 measure of 2/4, 2 measures of 4/4. So same exact rhythmic structure, same harmonic structure. The chord progression's the same. 1 measure of G. This is another unusual part of this tune that we probably don't pick up on so well, but that has an effect on our experience of the tune. There's a chord, the harmonic rhythm is what we call it, which is how long the harmony lasts, the chords last. So we have a G chord that's 1 measure, then a C chord for 2 measures, D for 1 measure, E for 2 measures. So this 1, 2, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, that's unbalanced. It's pretty cool. And the melody is completely different. Than the verse melody, it's this jaunty, kind of syncopated, up and down, back and forth kind of vibe. And in the chorus, it's these long notes that are held out, and everything's kind of going down from that B that starts to that G that ends the verse. Okay, so that's Hey Ya, and that's what you'll perform for me. Now, the newest thing for us, for many of us, and what will, I'm sure, be the trickiest, but do not be frustrated, is the exposure to the 7/4 meter. And we'll be using, I did a reduction of Them Bones by Alice in Chains. And you'll see here there's four measures of 7/4 that are repeated. Okay, you see these repeat signs. And you're going to perform, let me go through all of it. There's 4 measures of 7/4 that are repeated, and then there's 5 measures of 4/4, right? So that's a meter. Not only am I throwing an odd meter at you, but then there's a meter change to something, to 4/4, which you're familiar with. But when you practice this, focus on the 7/4 measures first to really get the hang of it. And I've included a few things here. One is the guitar tab, because I know you're being exposed to that in harmony. And here we have a drop D tuning, so that low open string, right, is a D. But what we find here, and I included the notation because it has the rhythm, and you'll see that what we have is a kind of clave. This is a very typical move in tunes in 7/4, where we have this repetitive rhythmic idea in the accompaniment. So that's that middle line, the electric guitar, that has just this rhythm. So it's 2 half notes and 2 dotted quarters. So if we go nice and slow, and you'll also do this, like I think I already said, with the metronome at 2 tempos, all right? One will be, let's say, around 90. And you'll perform this. So here's how that electric guitar, the middle guitar line sounds, okay? Right? So that's 7/4. If I count along, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's hard to do that. 3, 4. Right? It might help you to count ands, right? So in that second part, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7, and 1, right? Something like that. So that rhythm that repeats over and over really grounds the melody here. And the melody, you can call D minor, right? We'll call this D minor. 1, 1, 7, 1. Let's use the metronome. 1, 1, 7, 1. That's the first measure for you. Okay. Now, so you'll do it around 90 BPM, and then you'll bump it up to as close to like 150. Let's say, so here's what 150 sounds like. It can be a little, right? It sounds fast, but remember, you're mostly holding out long notes, right? So here's how the rhythm sounds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? That's the first 4 measures. So 1, 1, 7, 1 is how you will start that tune. Okay? Now, for measures 5 through 9, we've gone to 4/4. So you'll need to kind of recalibrate, and you can separate these two for now. Ideally, because the way the actual tune goes is they go right into that 4/4 measure. But you don't have accompaniment. It's a lot easier with a drummer and a band. But what's important, or what I like about using these 4/4 measures in this example, is that it also introduces you to a non-harmonic tone. So we have in measure 5, 3, 1. I won't sing these in time because that's your prerogative, right? But again, if we're in D minor, we have an F in measure 5. 3, 1, 7, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 1, 7, 1, 7. Then this A flat. Right? What do we call that? We all know that sound. It's like a blue note is what we often call something like that. But we're not singing it as 5 because A natural is 5. So because it has a flat, we're going to sing it with the word or the syllable flat. So that second to last measure, 1 7 flat, right? 1 7 flat 4 3. I need to sing it higher. 1 7 flat 4 3 1. 1 7 flat 4 3 1 is how you will sing that. And you do your best. If you call it 5 or 4 instead, that's not a huge deal, but I want you to understand what its function is, which is that it's not part of any kind of harmonic, right? It's a decoration that we're all familiar with. We all know that sound, right? And that is really it, I think. Let me make sure. Yeah. So this is a much longer video than you normally get. They won't continue to be this long, but there was a lot to explain here. Haven't done these videos in a little while because you've been working on your midterms, and I hope it's useful. Obviously, if you have questions, and I'm certainly expecting more questions, feel free to email me. We can set up a Zoom meeting, come to our Zoom classes, and I look forward to hearing these assignments, and everything will be up on Blackboard, or already is by the time you see this. So if anything's unclear, let me know. Okay, folks, take care. I'll see you soon.